Hello and welcome to another episode of Style of Play. I am, of course, your host, Kojo, joined by my co-host, Basil. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Still top of our tables in the
Mm,
league and in Europe, so can't complain. I mean, like I said,
yeah, I hear that.
My team collected 3 points without having to even score a goal from any of our players. So what more can I say?
Yeah, I can't lie, I'm still a bit triggered by that. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Of course, if you're new here, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you're here already, don't forget to hit the like button and drop your comments below. All right, let's get started. Now, we were discussing this before the pod started, so I think it's a good place to enter. And we're talking about the strikers, the players that have entered the league this season. So you're talking about the likes of Gyökeres, Votamada. Obviously, is that playing with Newcastle? Now he's at Liverpool. Sesko, Kolomouani,
Yeah, yeah.
and of course Ekitike, who's actually doing well. So if he started the best anyway, quite clearly. João Pedro, who was already in another club, and he's in England and Brighton, and he's at Chelsea. But there is a struggle. It seems like apart from I'll give credit to the Igor Thiagos. I'll give credit to Igor Thiagos, the Brentford one. No, is it Brentford? Is that Brentford? It's two. I'll get Igor
Yeah,
Jesus. That's the
there's Jesus at Forest and there's
He's at
Thiago
Forest.
at
Yes,
Brentford.
that's it. Yes. So you got to tell about Brentford and Jesus at Nottingham Forest, considering how their clubs are performing, they've had a relatively decent start to the season.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously Haaland's doing what he's doing, but everyone else seems to be having a struggle one way or another. Whether it's obviously injuries have cut some time off or whatever, it seems like they're all not really hitting the ground running. Maybe Votamada for a bit and then he switched off. Obviously had a disaster in the Newcastle, Sunderland versus Newcastle game last weekend. So quality of strikers. Are the strikers that have signed in the league just, I mean, I know they're new, there is time to adapt, but or do you foresee them maybe trying to eventually settle and hit the heights? Or do you think clubs have potentially gone on and done a dud in terms of the quality of signings that they've made? But especially because you've got a striker in Gyökeres who people will say maybe isn't hitting the heights that people would expect him to have hit.
I think ultimately the quality of just, and I wouldn't even say strikers, the quality of just football players, and I'm talking about just ability on the ball, with people who are playing strikers, is just really gone down the drain. So what you have is everyone is overpricing their strikers now because there is just a lack of real quality. So what you have is you have all these clubs now having to spend a lot of money on these players who, when you watch them before they've even moved to the clubs, aren't good enough for even to the highest of qualities. Now, there are a few differences. At least Gyökeres kind of had, goal scoring prowess to kind of potentially back up why Arsenal will spend the money. The rest of them definitely not. Apart from the likes of Alexander Isak, which just is not working whatsoever at Liverpool for one reason or another. But the rest of them, yeah, they've just been overpriced. And what it's showing is that none of these guys have worked apart from Ekitike. Ekitike is the only one who seems to have settled. But when you watch Ekitike, he's more than a striker. He's a good footballer. And I think that's the difference between him and a lot of these other strikers. When you look at the two strikers Liverpool have, they're good footballers. They're good with the ball at their feet. They're very intelligent players. So even if sometimes they're not scoring, there's other elements that they can bring that will benefit the team in terms of being able to link up well, having good technical ability on the ball, being able to carry the ball and dribble the ball. So you can kind of see that even when, like I said, Isak is pumped at Newcastle, if he's not scoring, you can see the other elements of his game, which makes him so impressive. Ekatike settled him. Obviously, he's gone to Liverpool. It just hasn't worked out so far. Obviously, part of it is his own doing in terms of how he behaved in pre-season and not giving himself the best chance to be match fit to help Liverpool. But at least Ekatike, on the other hand, you see, ability-wise, he's looking like a fantastic player. He will score you goals, but his overall game just seems very impressive. And he's still at 21, 22. So there's still a lot of scope for him to grow and develop. The rest of them, not good enough. Gyökeres, unfortunately for me, technically just not good enough as a football player. And I think Arsenal are also to blame because they're not playing to his strength. We know he's not good technically on the ball. but play to his strengths of if he's going to make the runs, play the ball very quick. Arsenal are very slow in terms of playing the ball in behind and don't really play a lot of balls in behind the defense. It goes out wide and they're trying to work things out wide. So ultimately, he's becoming very redundant in the team. So one, they're not playing to his strengths, and then two, because they're not playing to his strengths, his weaknesses are showing, and they're very glaring on the pitch because of that. When you look at other clubs, João Pedro has never ever been good. And like I said, he scored 15 goals in open play in 75 games for Brighton. I highlighted that in the pod when Chelsea signed him.
Yeah, very
And
early on.
people overlooked that because what they saw 30 goals in 75. I thought, oh, that's a great record. 15 of those goals were penalties. And I remember when I saw João Pedro, a lot of the goals were coming from penalties. And I've said, he's never been a great player. People said, oh, he's never been an effective great player. So he's come to Chelsea, they've signed him as a striker. Now they're talking about they need to buy another striker. And then people say he's not a striker. And I go, well, if he's not a striker, what is he? He's not a winger. He's not a number 10 because he's not effective. He doesn't create, he doesn't do what you want a number 10 to do. I'm like, he's just a redundant player in any team if he's not going to do a job as a centre forward. And you see in that Chelsea team, ridiculous amount of money they spend on him. And I don't know what we were watching in Brighton that would make them spend that money.
Yeah,
Benjamin Sesko just hasn't worked at Manchester United so far. Barring, yes, he's had a few injury problems there, but even, I'm sorry to say, even when he has played, he hasn't looked impressive whatsoever. Who else? What Voltemade? Once again, I don't look at him as an effective striker. People said, oh, yes, he's settled, but it wasn't to any high level of standards
right.
in those first few games at Newcastle. Because what they saw is that he scored a few goals. A lot of those goals were scrappy goals, by the way. And I judge strikers not by how many goals they score, but the type of goals they score and the quality of the goals they score, because that would determine whether a striker can carry a club. I mean, look at when Alexander Isak was there. It wasn't the fact he scored goals. It was the type of goals and the quality of those goals that was going for Newcastle. That
Yeah.
you looked and said that is a quality striker who they can rely on week in, week out in most games. I don't look at Baltimore in the same page as Isak. I don't think he's a great striker, me personally. I've
Right.
never thought he was a great striker before he came to Newcastle. And same when the Bayern someone in the Bayern owner, whoever it was in Bayern, who made those comments. I agreed with those comments. They grossly overspent money on Baltimore, to be honest. And you're seeing in the last few games, he's become such a passenger in that team that he's become very ineffective. And I don't know if there's any other strikers we need to bring up, but at the moment, the quality of strikers that have been bought into this league or have moved across in the league is terrible, absolutely terrible.
Just okay. So I'll come from a different angle, and then you
Yeah.
can let me know if you think I'm bugged or anything. But do you think it could also be an issue of like clubs sort of misidentifying the kind of striker that they need? Like I look at Arsenal, for example, right? So
Mm,
the way you play football. I think your best football that you've played is with Jesus or Havertz up front because, as you
mm,
said, better footballers, so they can link up better, they can go into other spaces and look more effective.
mm,
Gyökeres, whilst he had the ability to run into channels at Sporting,
yeah.
one is it's a more open league,
Mhm,
and two, um, I guess the defenders he was coming up against were a lot less physical. So
mm,
he wasn't dueling as much. He could just sort of just power his way past them and score goals.
mm.
Um, so could it be? And it's not only just him. It's not only just them because I think a lot of people look at
I,
both.
I can, I can answer. I can answer that question with
Oh yeah,
ease.
go on, go on.
Yeah. So the issue with Arsenal, and this is why it doesn't work at Arsenal, which is where Arsenal have a problem, and it's more Arteta and his system. Because yes, overall, you could say when Havertz and Jesus were there, we looked our best because they understood the system, but they didn't score goals, and they weren't clinical finishers.
Mm.
So how many key games? Well, the reason Arsenal missed out on winning things, how many key games did they have chances and wasted those chances? So Arsenal had to change from that, from someone who had a good and proven goal scoring record, which is why they needed a striker and brought in Gyökeres. The biggest issue you have is that if you then revert back to having Jesus and Havertz, we don't have goals all over the team. So it works. It used to work in the City team and it used to work in the Liverpool team when they had Firmino. But
Mm.
because Firmino had Mane and Salah either side of him scoring goals, they didn't rely on him that heavily to be scoring. He didn't score as much goals as those two because they had goal scorers in the team. So it works when you have high percentage goal scorers in your team. Same as City. Riyad Mahrez will chip in with 20 goals. Bernardo Silva will chip in with a number of goals. So if City went for playing a false nine, as sometimes that they did, they had goal scorers all over the pitch from KDB to Mahrez, who can score a handful of goals, so they're not relying on their strikers. The issue with Arsenal, where it doesn't work, and which is why they needed the Gyökeres, Saka doesn't score that many goals. Martinelli doesn't score that many goals. Trossard scores a decent amount, and that's about it. Odegaard doesn't score a lot of goals. Rice doesn't score a lot of goals. So the issue is, well, it doesn't work when we revert back to that because we're not going to get help from the other players in our team because they don't score that many goals. So that's the reason why when it comes to fine lines, Arsenal fall short because they have nothing to rely on. Whereas the other teams city in their pump, Liverpool in their pump, those goals all over the place. Salah was scoring 30 plus goals. Mane was getting you 20 plus goals. Arsenal have never, Saka has never hit 20 goals in a season. Martinelli has never hit 20 goals overall in a season. So that's the reason why Arsenal needed a goal scoring. And if they're going to do that, they had to change their approach, which is something that they're not doing. So at the moment, they're still operating on fine margins, which is why it could go either one of the way Arsenal are successful or they're going to fall short at some point because they don't have that. So, so I think it's a coaching issue because Arteta has to adapt that team somehow. At the moment, he's not doing it because they're winning, but you can see in Wolves we got away with one. Aston Villa, we lost that game. You can't keep relying on these fine margins. You have to adapt and find a way to get everyone flowing, to get a way where you're getting more goals from everyone else, including Gyökeres. Because at the moment, he hasn't really had that many clear-cut chances. Obviously, like some of it is his own doing in terms of movement and where he positions himself. Mm-hmm. But he hasn't had that many clear-cut chances in comparison to what Havertz and Jesus had to really compare him to those guys. Because those guys, we've seen their finishing. It's bad from Havertz and Jesus. At the moment, Gyökeres, we haven't really seen it because there hasn't been many chances created for him for many reasons.
Okay, right. Let me bring this forward to you then. Sorry, my screen has been a bit silly. Right, I'm gonna bring this to you, and we'll see how you feel about this. I'm gonna share screen here, okay? I'm hoping I do this right. I haven't done this share screen in a long time, but let's go and see. All right. So how does this look? Can you see the graphic?
Yeah, I can see the graphic.
Okay, brilliant. So I found this.
Love your agenda.
I found this.
I even forgot about Muwani, to be honest.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Probably the worst of all of them.
Yeah, I think everyone knows he's not very good, so I'm not even gonna waste my time on that one. But we will talk about Tottenham and their struggles in a bit. But I saw this, and obviously the stamp says the overlap, so it is they're credited them before we get into any trouble. But I saw this, and I was like, "Oof, okay, this is a problem." But I identified it as a problem. I know Gyökeres has a very high percentage, which is a bit troublesome considering how Arsenal play. It's very possession based. You have to learn how to keep the ball. But look at the range of strikers here, right? Yeah. Gyökeres is new. One is new. It's like it's a big money signing. Sesko Sesko's a new signing, big money signing. Liam Delap has moved from Ipswich to Chelsea, big signing. And considering how many games he's missed through injury, I say that's still quite an alarming statistic. Richarlison, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't expect anything else. Joshua Zirkzee, for someone who's supposed to hold the ball up and keep United going forward and linking up, that's no good statistic either. Ollie Watkins is Premier League experience. I mean, I would say as a whole, Villa started poorly this season, but you know, is what it is. João Pedro's one. Look how many touches he has.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, compared to everybody else, he's in a league of his own in terms of touches. Yeah. I mean, he's very involved in the play. But then that comes from someone who says he's not really at 9, he's not really at 10. We don't know what he is. Ekitike, I think, considering how much has gone through him because he's been Liverpool's best player this season, I think that's probably why he's there. So I'm not allowing him, but I understand why he's there. And Haaland with 29% as well, but he gets goals, so he's not really going to be an issue. But looking at the names above Ekitike and Haaland, I think for me, that speaks about what's going on with strikers now. Because if you are a club, you're going to identify a talent.
Yeah.
And you want that talent to come in and, and Isaac's not a winger. So if this was Mane when he was at Liverpool, players are
Mm,
going through him. Salah at Liverpool, players are going through him. I'm like, okay, I understand they're going to try and take on players. They're going to
yeah,
try and beat players. It's a 50-50 game at that point. And if you beat them, you beat them. If you don't, you lose the ball. That's going to be a statistic. But Isaac's supposed to be at number 9. Isaac's
mhm,
supposed to be running the game and scoring goals. Sesko is supposed to be scoring goals. He's losing the ball a lot.
yeah,
Xerxes, I don't know what he's supposed to be doing apart from holding the ball up. But if that's your job, you're obviously not doing it very well.
mm,
When you look at the strikers here, the caliber of strikers, considering they are probably, actually not probably, definitely starters for all their clubs,
yeah.
apart from Xerxes when Sesko's fit. Don't you see that as very alarming as to essentially what we would consider a lack of quality in the league? And I would say, I mean, I
Mm.
haven't got the statistics for it. Maybe I'm wrong, but from how I've judged footballers in the past and the strikers that we used to have, I don't imagine them losing possession this much.
Uh, they probably were, to be honest. When I seen this, I kind of hate this table because I don't think it paints.
A fair picture?
I don't think it paints a fair picture because possession loss. You can probably go to midfielders and they probably have a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
for me, what the overlap are trying to do here is to create a narrative from a different angle. Sometimes you don't need to. All you need to do is just watch the players. Possession loss for me doesn't mean as much because it for me the context will be what are the players attempting. So and where are they losing the possession? Because for instance, if for instance, if I look at Haaland, he's lost possession 105 times. That could have been in the box when he's attempting something where they should attempt it. So for me, the context should be where are they losing the ball? What's the context behind them losing the ball?
Mhm.
Which is why I don't really like this table that they've created in the overlap to create a narrative. And that's what it is. Because my thing is, well, if as a striker, I'm spending 90% of my time in the box. I'm like Haaland has scored like how many goals so far, right? But then if it's me attempting things in the right areas of the pitch, yeah, there's a high chance you're going to lose possession. That's fine to lose a possession there. I think it just depends on how you're losing possession and where you're losing possession. Because like I said, you'll look at Isak. It says possession lost 47 times, or even go to Ekitike. Possession lost 104 times. And obviously, there's times he has been sloppy in possession. But when he's lost, I've never thought, he's lost it most of the times in the right areas when he's attempting things in the final third. So I'm not too mad at that. Whereas you can look at Gyökeres and you can look at places where he's lost possession, and some of it is very sloppy. So there's context to things because it shows Ekitike 104 very close to Gyökeres
True.
111.
It's true. Yep.
Whereas Ekitike's one, sometimes he's losing it in the right areas, attempting things. Sometimes Gyökeres is more sloppiness.
It's true.
And that's why I say like this doesn't paint a real picture when it comes to the touches and the possession loss because touches doesn't mean anything. As a striker, you have strikers who are very good on the ball, have a lot of touches, and you have strikers who don't have a lot of touches. I mean, there's games where Haaland probably has about 6 touches in a game and will score 2 goals.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
does that count? There's games where Isak may have 100, 25 touches in a game and score 2 goals. What picture does that really paint?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's what's at the end of it. But at the moment, yeah, you can see just reading from this list anyway, there is a real lack of quality strikers. Like if I look at this list, the only ones who I say have any real quality, Haaland, Ekitike, and Isak on his day. Obviously, we know Isak it hasn't worked out at the moment at Liverpool, but we've seen what he's capable of. You're talking about this is a list of three, six. You're talking about three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11 strikers. Out of the 11, there's only three here of any real quality. That for me is alarming. That for me is alarming. Out of 11 players here, I can only name you three who have of any real substance and quality.
It's disturbing, isn't
And
it?
in fairness, I'm not gonna obviously I'm talking about Isak, Ektik, and Haaland, but at least you can even say at least Gyökeres has 2 seasons worth of high goal scoring. So at least you say he has some level of pedigree.
Yeah, yeah.
Not saying he's of the height, but at least he has some level of pedigree when it comes to statistics. And then you look at the rest of them, extremely poor, extremely poor.
No, no, I don't disagree. I don't disagree, and I'm happy you analyzed this because I saw another picture that I was going to share with you, but I thought
Yeah,
no, this is this one for me didn't really make any sense. It was about
Yeah.
through balls, and
Mm.
obviously I think there's been a lot of discussion about style of play again, in particular with Arsenal, because obviously you the league leaders and Gyökeres was the big money striker signing until obviously Isaac,
Yeah.
and obviously he wasn't prem proven, so I guess a lot more scrutiny on him. Um, and they were like, well, Arsenal play a lot of through balls. I think statistically Arsenal have played the most through balls in the Premier League this season. So
Yeah.
what is the issue with Gyökeres? I was like, well, when you say through balls can be through balls to the wingers, can be through balls to anybody. It depends on what kind of play it is. So what, who are where are the through balls being played? If you say in
Mm.
central areas, whilst Gyökeres is on the pitch when he's in play, that's different. Um, because I can give you an example. When I was watching Arsenal, I think it was Martinelli that's on the ball, and whoever was left at left back was, or central midfield actually was overlapping him, and the weight of pass was so bad. So
Exactly.
that went out of play, but that will constitute as a free ball because that's the type of pass that he's played. To get it through a space, pass into a space ahead of your player, so he runs onto it and he can do what he does with it. So I didn't want to share that stat because I thought, no, that's a bit dangerous. I think that would be a very unfair statistic to say, oh, so what's the issue with Gyökeres when they're not fully in detail with context explaining
Mm.
where their balls are going in? Is Gyökeres a part of these situations, or is it just Arsenal as a whole playing through balls and just sometimes it's not being as successful as they'd hope it would?
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm happy you spoke about the strikers because look, my philosophy has always been if you are playing in the Premier League, you must have some level of quality to be playing in them. You must. I mean, you wouldn't be, I guess, signed by a team unless they didn't think you could play at that level. So I hope you have a level of quality to show. And if you don't, some players are built for the Championship, rather. Some players are not built for the Premier League or the Championship. It might be a bit lower, maybe somewhere else in Europe. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, but when I look at this list of strikers, and considering, look, there was so much hype over Gyökeres in the summer. There was so much hype over Sesko. I've been a fan of Sesko for a long time, but I will be honest and say when he was signing, I did say I think he'd be better in the two because
Mm.
Sesko, for me, is not a player that dribbles and beats players. He's
Yeah.
someone links with someone quick and hits a shot because he's got a powerful shot on him. He's got aerial ability. But, if you go back to the game, United played against Bournemouth, the 4-4 draw. There's a moment where he was by himself and
Yeah.
he had to take on the two centre backs. And I was like, he's not gonna beat them here. Even the first touch was quite unconvincing. He didn't really look like he knew he could beat them. Whereas I think if he had someone as a partner there to pass it on to very quick and then power through, obviously his height, his strength, he's deceptively quick, then you have a problem with Sesko.
Mm.
Until then, you're not going to get the best out of him.
Yeah.
So that's just how I analyzed it. But talking of we segue, speaking of Cisco, we'll talk about problems. Man United drew 4-4 with Bournemouth. Um, and in the game, if we're going to talk about tactical changes, United obviously lined up with the usual three at the back, four at midfield, three up front,
Yeah.
or 3-4-2-1 if you would, since you've got two attacking number 10s rather than forwards or strikers. Um, but during the game, which I think he's been trying to do for a long time, but he's just trying to figure out how to do it. And Rim has had them go into a four during the game, a
Yeah.
back four, and then it looked like a 4-4-2, then it looked like a 4-3-3. But the defending still wasn't good enough. And whilst United have scored a lot of goals in the league this season, I say a lot of goals. For me, 26 in, I think, how many league games you played? 15 or so. I don't know how many games you played
Yeah.
so far. I don't think that's a good return. And I also think it's quite alarming that United, I think, have, if I'm correct, the third or fourth most goals in the league. So 26 at this stage in December, being third or fourth highest in the league for me is quite alarming also,
Mm.
league as a whole. But I digress. They've also conceded 24 goals. So my question to you is this. Obviously, I don't want to delve too much into the game. I don't want to go back and be like, oh, this is what happened. But Bournemouth didn't create so many chances, but when they create chances, they make sure it's clear cut. Now,
Mm.
what do you think the issue with United is? Because there's always a discussion about whether it's tactical or personnel. Could be both.
It's
Looking at that game, what do you think the issue was there? Um, And why do you think they conceded 4 goals, even though they scored 4 goals and couldn't win the game?
So it's a number of things, and it's tactical and in-game management. I'll first start with the in-game management. It seems most games when United take the lead, they just lack control of the game. And when you look at when you look at compare it to like an Arsenal, forget even the Wolves game. Usually, most times when Arsenal take the lead, they control the game, so they control the possession, they dictate the game. I think with United is kind of the opposite. Sometimes when United can score the goal first, you're always there like, oh, the other team is they're gonna equalize at some point. The Tottenham game was another one of that. You guys scored and then you just lost control of the game. You know, there's an issue of in-game management when United kind of take the lead that needs to be addressed. And I think that's more of a managerial thing because I see it one too many times. I see it in many games. If it's a one-off, I can understand that. When you look at Arsenal, there's 2 games where Arsenal took the lead and then lost control of the game, and those were both against Sunderland and Wolves. But majority of the time, when Arsenal kind of taken it, they've controlled it, and you kind of find it very difficult for the team to kind of get a foothold. United, there's been many games I've seen where they've kind of taken the lead or got themselves back into the game and then just lost control of the game. So there's an in-game management that needs to be addressed by Amarin. And I think there's also a tactical element as to how we shape up defensively. It doesn't matter whether you play a 4 or a 3. I don't think Amarim has figured out how to get your team defensively solid when they're out of possession. So the structure for me is always wrong, and when you're out of possession, because it just seems every time a team attacks that United defense, there's a lot of chances created. There's no calmness at the back, and there seems to be a lot of chaos. And I just think that's just more of a coaching thing. I don't think it is a personnel thing. I think you can bring in as much personnel as you want, unless those players are coached properly as to how to defend properly and what to do when they don't have the ball. It's going to continue. You can bring in Van Dijk into that team. You can bring in William Saliba into that United team. It will still be the same issue. So I think it's something that Amarin has to look at and address effectively. And it also doesn't apply to Amarin. It also applies to Enzo Maresca. I won't delve into it, but he's another one I've mentioned it many times. When you look at some of the defensive lapses in both teams and the chances they create, it's more of a coaching thing rather than a personnel thing. And I think that's something Amarin needs to figure out, that regardless of what your best centre back pairing is or your best defensive personnel is, how to coach them when they don't have the ball, and how to coach them defensively just doesn't seem to be there. And I think he needs to stick to a stable back 3 if you're going to play a 3, because it keeps chopping and changing. 1 minute Euro's in the team, 1 minute he's out.
Yeah.
Is the lit injured?
Yeah, he's injured. Yeah,
Injured. Okay, Maguire sometimes is in the team.
he's
You
injured.
know, he's out. Luke Shaw is playing in the back 3. He's never been great defensively, so I don't understand why he's still playing there. But I think he needs to have more of a consistent. Dalot sometimes flicks in between the right and the left. There's also an issue with Ahmad because Ahmad isn't good defensively, and he's not expected to ever be good defensively because he's not a fullback or a wingback. He's a winger by trade. So I think there's a weakness there on that side when United don't have possession, which teams seem to exploit quite often because you're asking a winger to do a defensive job when you're out of possession. So I think he needs to kind of sort that out and figure out a stable back 5 or a stable 3 with your 2 wing backs going forward.
So I think the way I've assessed it anyway was
Mm,
when if you look at the first half and second half were night and day.
mm.
If you look at the first half, I think what he tried to do, which I think worked
Yeah,
perfectly,
he did.
was Ahmad was a lot more forward,
Yeah,
and then Dallo was the player. He'd go forward at times, but he was a lot more defensively disciplined. Just
yeah,
oh goodness bloody hell. It's about time, innit? And then Euro shifted over a bit, Shaw shifted over a bit, and Heaven shifted
yeah,
over a bit. I think the issue he's had is he's been trying to identify a back 3 where he has someone who can patrol the back, which is Delict usually. He did miss Martinez, but I think when Martinez was fit for him last season, you could see he was the guy that brought the ball out. He was able to play spray passes long and short. And then he had someone else on the other side who could also sort of ball play, maybe not to the same level, but ball play
mm,
enough to progress the ball forward. And in this game, I think he brought Heaven in, and you saw when Heaven had the ball, Heaven was the one that was progressing the ball a lot more. He was dribbling past 1 or 2
yeah,
players, trying to thread it forward. But obviously, Heaven is not anywhere as strong defensively as De Ligt or Martinez even,
Yeah.
so that's where you have a risk there. So I think he's still trying to get his balance right. I think if all three are fit and raring to go and do not face injury, Euro De Ligt, Martinez is back. He's back free. I think that for
Yeah.
sure. And unfortunately for him, he has not had a consistent back three because of those injury issues. Maguire plays well, then like for example, he played great against Liverpool, and then the
Mm.
next day this game is injured, so you don't have him available. Which
Yeah.
is, the Ligt is in good form, and then he comes back, he's injured. Martinez comes back. Even for him, he came back last season, played well, scored helped the winner with Ahmad. Um, Played well in the other games to win there. He scored the winner against Fulham last
Mm.
season. He got injured again, so he went missing as well. So even that in itself is a club issue because how you keep getting injury after injury after injury. And if we're going to be honest, if we criticize Arsenal for injury issues, we've got to criticize United for the same thing. There's something going on. You have to figure it out, fix it. Um, so I think that's the first issue. I think the second issue in terms of personnel is I always say this when you play three at the back with any team, you need to make sure that all your personnel fits perfectly.
Yeah.
I think where he hit a gold mine with Sporting because he had two jobs beforehand. He did a good job at Braga and I can't remember where he was beforehand. Before Braga, he did a good job there as well. But when he went Sporting, with all the players that were leaving,
Mm.
he had a clean slate.
Yeah.
So he could bring through youngsters that could play certain positions,
Mm.
and the rest of the experienced players that were there, he could fit them into the places that he went into, and it was magic. So when they then signed Gyökeres, all they needed was a number nine to power through, height, strong, eye for goal, and it worked. At United, I think the players that he signed fit those holes. However, it's a 25-man squad plus
Mm.
youngsters. You signed I want to say six or five or six players. Lemons, the front three, um Dogu. Is there someone I'm forgetting? I don't think I'm forgetting anybody, am I?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so we'll go for five for now. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but if I am, someone will remind me. That's five players so far, right? And if you're gonna fit those five into the 11, you still got six that are not adept to playing to three at the back.
Mm.
So, or maybe Martinez, he played a little bit as well for IS, but IS are usually a four at the back team, so I won't really give him that grace. But everyone else um plays, you know, four at the back and they know their roles. And we know how footballers today they've been trained into being in certain systems. So if you're not playing three at the back ever yet, it's crazy for you. You know what's going on.
Yeah.
But as a coach, that's where you have to find the personnel, and also you have to get the results. So you get that time. So you're gonna have to hope that the season goes well enough that the club gives you more time to get those players in. That's another issue. Um, and then thirdly, the tactical thing. So I will criticize and then I will defend him. If you're gonna go to the four and then go to the three, your midfield choices have to be on point.
Mhm.
And I understand. I'm always the first to say I I think Bruno is a flight risk. Casemiro is obviously very old, in football terms anyway. Ugarte is not good enough.
Mhm.
And then you've got the mystery of Kobbie Mainoo. And whilst I don't think his ability is a mystery, I think we all know he's a very good footballer. His issue is he's not a runner. So now if you're going to play two in the midfield of a 3-4-3, you're going to need him to run. And if you can't do it, you're killing him. And if you're going to play three in the middle, you're going to need someone behind the two that's positionally disciplined enough to play the role. If you don't have those players, you don't force that on the players. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense because you're killing yourself. On the other hand, when he went to the 4-3-3 again on Monday, the equalizer we conceded for the 4-4 was something that we've worried about with Mainoo for a while. This isn't new. This happened under Ten
Mm.
Hag as well. So it's not a Rim issue. It's not a Ten Hag issue. He's young still, so I'm giving him a bit of grace.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to learn and understand because these days when you're young, the pressure's on you quicker, especially when you are deemed a supreme talent. We're in possession of the ball, we lose possession. They're playing it round the back. And then it comes onto our left side, and Kobbie is playing on the right side of that
Mm.
midfield three.
Yeah.
And for some reason, he completely commits himself to that left side when he doesn't need to be there and he
Mm.
gives the gaping space. Lo and behold, the ball goes into that area. And then Ahmad is the one now trying to chase back the player,
Yeah.
and the ball goes through to Cooper and it's 4-4. And it's those small details that can make big differences. So I think that's where he's complained about the smallest details and saying that he doesn't think it's ever going to be a formation thing. A lot of people don't like Fred.
Is but Kojic, is that really fair on a youngster who's only won first started games against
No, no,
Grimsby?
I'm,
Sorry,
I'm, I'm not
but
saying it's
then
fair.
no, I get it. But then my thing is this, because I know it's highlighted, but then my thing is, how many times have we seen that from Bruno? How many times have we seen that from Casemiro? Which
Precisely.
is where I don't understand the whole Kobbie Mainoo conundrum, because for me, I look at it like this. As a manager, if you're not getting the results you're having and you're trying out all the players, what's the worst that can happen if you try Kobbie Mainoo, who you know has ability? Because we've seen Bruno Fernandes have so many lapses. We've seen Casemiro have so many lapses in that midfield. We've seen Ugarte. We've tried all three of them and it hasn't worked. So for me, is that why do you continue? Why does the manager continue trying those three players plus Mount in Mount, who's barely kicked a ball, who's only just come back from injury, who hasn't been available for you ahead of Kobbie Mainoo? Because there's nothing for me. It's like, okay, the worst that can happen, you try it, it doesn't work out, but it's not working out with the other options. So I question why he's spiting himself to hurt himself in that manner in terms of you have Kobbie there, you're not giving him an opportunity. I mean, I hate it when you give them an opportunity. Okay, maybe it doesn't go as well, and then it's like, but oh, see, and then you don't want to give them an opportunity. It's unfair for you to throw someone into that kind of pressure and expect him to work miracles in the game. If it doesn't work in here, you have to give him a run of games. So on that, no, I question what on earth Amarin is doing in regards to the whole Kobbie Mainoo situation. Because as you said, the first thing you said is we know he has ability. Everybody knows he has ability. I mean, that's not in doubt. We've seen what he's done under Ten Hag. So then my question is, well, if we know he has ability, why can't you make that work? And this is where I start to question Amarim as a manager when he continues to play the same players and not utilize some of the options he has at his disposal.
That's why that's why I went to criticize him first. And when I
Yeah, I
said
agree with you
defend him,
there.
it wasn't
Yeah.
a case of like he's blame not he don't take the blame away from him. But
Mm.
I'm trying to also trying to get into
Balance
his
it
head.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into his head to understand what he's trying to do tactically and why he
Yeah.
players can't fit certain roles. But again, back to the criticism that I made first.
Mm.
If you're putting players in positions where they're not effective, you got to take them out.
Yeah.
And like you said, Bruno Fernandes has not been like Bruno Fernandes he's your free kick taker, he's your corner taker, he's your this taker, your that
Mm.
taker. So he's going to get statistically good things on him. He's going to
Yeah.
be a game changer because if he puts a good corner in and then it has it in to save you at 2-2 at Tottenham away, then
Yeah.
Bruno Fernandes will scream. Um, when Bruno Fernandes gives the ball away a lot against Bournemouth, but when he scores a free kick to get you back in the game, he looks great.
Yeah.
So when it comes to players like that, I know he's playing because he has those qualities to
Mm.
change the game in a moment. So
Yeah.
whilst I'm like the rest of the things that he's doing is not good, and I'd rather see him taken off the pitch when he's not doing it,
Yeah.
he has these other I guess pros that in his game where you're like, okay, he can change the game in a moment. I understand that.
Mm.
But to that point, sometimes if it's not working, it's not working. Bruno Fernandes doesn't have that game week in and week out.
Yeah.
And when it's not working, sometimes you got to make it change. I think my main issue with him is he did it well against Bournemouth. He
Yeah.
made the subs a lot quicker,
Yeah. I agree.
but in previous games, he's not done that.
Yeah.
And when you kill yourself and you make it too late, you're expecting players to change a minute game in a second. I know games can change in a second. It's always an action in a second,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's not like that. And the other team are very comfortable. They're set. And if you're not changing your approach and you're just making changes to bring another player on, but the approach doesn't change, you're not taking an added risk to make them think differently,
Yeah.
then nothing's going to happen. And I think that's where he's killing himself. So, Bournemouth for me, like a start of something, it was a lot more attacking players, a lot more exciting, a lot
Mm.
more risk was taken. I'm hoping he does that more often because I think when the players get more used to that risk, I think they'll concede less.
Yeah.
But he has to take that risk. Talking of um talking of risk, we can go to Tottenham, who seem to try and play a risky style every week, and it seems to be not working. Now I'm gonna say what I want to say about Thomas Frank, and you know, I think. When we did the podcast and he was linked with Tottenham during the summer, I said, I think he is a good fit for Tottenham in terms of if they want to build something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the issue that is at Tottenham is I firmly believe the fans and the club
Mm.
believe the players they have as a collective
Yeah.
are enough to push to the highest heights. and I don't see them like that. Right? I don't see them like that. I really don't see them like that. I think they've got
Do you think the fans see it that way? I think
yes, yes,
okay, fair,
yes.
fair.
I'll tell you why I think it's. I mean, it's not only through discussions, but only through what I see and the
Yeah,
reaction
yeah,
of
that's
fans
fine.
in game and how they react to losses and even draws and whatever. So the first thing is I think they've got a very good centre back pairing. Not as in like they're one of the best, but I see their individual qualities. I think Romero is obviously very aggressive. He's a bit of a monster and he's a weird one. But when on his day, and I hate saying on his day because anyone on his day can be good, but on his day he can be very good, right? I think in Van der Ven, they've got someone who knows his strengths, so tries to use it more than anything else. He knows he's quick. He
Mm.
knows he's got good height, and he knows how to make a slide challenge. So when it comes 1-on-one, instead of standing up, he's not so good. But he knows when he's trying to get around him. It's almost like Wan Bissaka.
And I add on top of that. I say that's what, and I think I'll just add on top of that, and then I'll let you finish, man, and jump on because I think just a small point. I think because of that, I think that's what makes Van der Ven weak in some areas as a defender
Yeah.
because of some of those strengths. But I'll let you finish, and then
Oh yeah.
obviously, yeah,
No, I
expand
agree with you.
expand
'Cause
on
I
that.
think he
Yeah.
almost defends like how Wan Bissaka defends 1-on-ones at right back. I don't think he can defend like that all the time at centre back. Uh,
Yeah, because the reason why I'll quickly say the reason why, and then I'll come back to it. The reason why is because I think he lacks he lacks defensive awareness that people have because he's reliant on his pace. So when you find it, a lot of people get away from Van der Ven, and he's good at recovery, which you shouldn't
yeah,
always have. Whereas if you look at the likes of Saliba and Van Dijk, they're quick defenders, but they didn't always rely on their pace, only when they needed to because they still had good defensive awareness of where to position themselves, how to defend properly, how to stay on your feet. And so the recovery with pace was like, oh, a last resort. But they had good defensive, they had a good base as defenders. I
yeah.
think Van der Ven, that's where his weaknesses are because he's so reliant on his pace. His awareness isn't there. So if you watch him, he doesn't players run off him or he's not aware of what players around him are doing. And he only looks good because he's able to recover well and get the tackling. And I've always said that's not good defending because what happened before that led you into that position. And when you can look at the weaknesses right there, which is like, oh, your defensive awareness isn't there,
Yeah.
which is why we're always having to talk about his pace and his recovery tackles. We don't talk for Van Dijk and Saliba. We don't talk about that a lot with them. We highlight they're good defending. That doesn't involve them having to do a lot of recovery because that's what good defenders should do.
Do you know where I think Van der Ven should play?
Go away.
Left back. I don't
But
think he'd be
he has the
perfect
ability.
left back.
He has the attributes to play there.
Yeah, no,
It just depends on whether he wants to, whether it's a position he's open to playing.
no, I agree, but I think his attributes fit that perfectly.
Yeah, I agree.
If you look at the way he plays for
Quick,
Tottenham,
he's powerful. He can run with the ball. This is what you welcome a left back.
he's easily one of their most progressive players. Point
Yeah,
blank, period. Forget about this defense. In terms of players on the ball in their team, he's the one that progresses probably the most.
yeah,
He's the one that passes forward the most. He's the one looking for creative to create chances the most from the back. Like
yeah,
he, obviously I know they haven't got an adequate replacement in that position if he was to go left back,
yeah,
but his quality scream to me of a left back, and it's not only because he's fast, you know.
yeah,
But anyway, and in terms of their whole other squad,
yeah.
so I think Xavi Simons is talented, but I don't think he's the right player for them. Um, the rest of the team. But see, this is the problem. I see it like that. They could disagree with me, and they could say like similar to United fans when you say to them, "Oh, so people." I think the latest discussion I've seen on social media is, "Oh, so you think Man United are really a 10th place team?" And some people are like, "Yeah, look at your team. They're not that good, by the way. They're actually not that good." Whereas with Liverpool, I think with Tottenham, they'll be like, "You can't tell us that we're 17th place team again. That can't happen again." And some people are like, "Yeah, it can." um. But anyway, I don't look at them and think they are an incredible team. So when they lost 3-0 at Forest, I wasn't surprised at all.
Yeah, I don't think. I think there was many people who weren't surprised at all.
Thank you.
It was one of the
Exactly.
results. It could have gone either way. If Tottenham won, you say, okay, not surprised. If Tottenham lost, you're again, and once again, you're not surprised.
There you go. And I think the reason why I mentioned Thomas Frank at the beginning is because to bring all of this as a collective, Thomas Frank is not a bad manager, but I think there's an understanding of level in football that is not yet understood yet. And look, I'm a coach. I'm a young coach trying to be a coach at the highest level. I'm trying to do my badges and hopefully compete with the big boys one day. That'd be a great dream to come true. But um, from what I assess at Brentford, it wasn't always suns and roses. Brentford looked good
Yeah,
because Brentford did well to come up from a championship to the Premier League.
yeah,
They settled as a Premier League club, but they weren't a team that always got consistent results.
yeah,
They were at times difficult to beat.
yeah.
They've got some talented players. They assembled a good squad that work together very well. They can play four at the back, they can play three at the back. So there was a bit of differentiation there.
Mm,
But their results weren't always good. And they had times in moments in seasons where they had a horrible run of results. That's why you haven't seen Brentford in the Europa League before. You haven't seen Brentford competing for a top four out of nowhere. They fall off. So when you go to Tottenham now, despite how I see them, I feel like how their fans see them, how the club see them, especially because what happened with Pochettino,
mm,
they now see themselves as one of the big boys. So there's a level of expectation that you must meet.
yeah.
And if you are not meeting that, the pressure they're going to put on you is crazy. And I don't think they have the patience for Frank to build a new team, a team that for me needs to be changed over the next 2, 3 seasons because players like
Agree.
Bentancur, Bissouma, who at this point doesn't want to play football, just wants to take part in stupid activities. Um, and all these other guys, they have Brennan Johnson, Richarlison,
Richarlison.
Colomwani on loan.
Mm.
Like they're not Solanke, who's been injured,
Yeah,
but
and let's not also forget this with Tottenham. I think there's it's crazy to think they have those expectations, but they don't operate that way, especially when it comes to a player recruitment perspective. So for example, you look at it, they signed Werner on loan. I
mm,
think it was for half a season at first or a whole season, and he was bad in that first initial loan spell. And then they renewed him again for another season. So you look at those kind of decision making, they don't make any sense. No other top club. Now you look at Arsenal, they bought Sterling on loan. They were not renewing that loan. It
yeah,
didn't work out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas you look at Werner, it didn't work out, and they still brought him back. Doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
Matthias Tell, when they first signed him on loan last January, didn't look good whatsoever at Tottenham, and then they made that permanent. So those kind of decision makings, you have to question what's going on there. Then they brought in Brennan Johnson for 56 million, something like that. And mind you, Brennan Johnson was playing as a striker for Forest at the time. And he's come in, he's playing as a winger. We've seen he's not good as a winger. So it's those kind of decision makings that baffles you, and you're like, what on earth is going on here? Even signing Xabi Simons, like I said, Jamie Simmons is as a technical player, he's good, but he's not a great player, and he's not one you build your team around. So you have to question who did the due diligence there in terms of shining Xabi Simmons, because what you see with him now is what you've seen with him on the national team, because he's never been consistent national team, and at Leipzig. If anyone had watched him at Leipzig, you realize he was a very inconsistent player in that team. This is a player who come from Barcelona and PSG, didn't cut the grade there, and then went down to Leipzig. But all you had to do was watch him regularly to see he's got ability, but he's highly inconsistent. So then you have to look at the Tottenham board making these decisions as to the players that they're bringing in. This is the same Tottenham that brought in, what was that right back that they had, Emerson Royale. Now, anyone who had watched Emerson Royale before Tottenham brought him in, he was an awful defender. Even when Barcelona signed him, I couldn't believe for the life of me Barcelona signed him because he was an awful defender. And then when Tottenham then offered the money that they offered for him to them, Barcelona couldn't wait to push him out of that because he was not a good defender.
yeah.
And they brought him in. Now, like I said, people, they're not doing their due diligence enough when it comes to signing these players. And they have to question, the board have to question themselves as to, you can't be ambitious and make those kind of decisions. And then say things are not working out, you're not where you should be when you're making those kind of decisions. The proof is in the pudding. If you're not making great signings to elevate your club and make your club competitive, then you're not going to compete with these guys, unfortunately. And that's one of the issues Tottenham have. So you can bring in Thomas Frank, but if you're not bringing in the adequate signings, what's he supposed to do? I mean, bringing in Colin Muani as your striker and thinking that's going to make a difference when he was awful at PSG, it's going to tell you everything you need to know about this club.
I think that sums up perfectly. This is why I'm like I don't know what they expect. I mean, I'm not trying to hit because the thing is the question is always for Spurs, but who's next? and you're gonna hear different names. And my issue is just like with players, because we do it with players all the time. Do you think they can make the step up? It's very rare that a player goes from like a lower club in England and thrives at the biggest clubs. Like
Yeah,
um, in recent memory, Andy Robertson is one
yeah,
that done well. Van Dijk is another, but he was standing out in the league whilst at Southampton.
100%. Yeah,
But that makes sense, you know. But all the other ones is like you have to do the same with managers. It's not
yeah.
always going to be the same. My biggest one I always use example is Graham Potter. He
Mm.
didn't have Brighton in the highest of heights in the league. He had a good style that was attractive to watch,
Yeah,
but they weren't getting great results all the time. But he
yeah,
did enough to keep them in the league. And he also had the environment that was good for him. Brighton was everything
exactly.
worked around him. He
Yeah,
went to a Chelsea that was in disarray, new owners,
mm.
spending money that was absolutely just not necessary to spend.
Yeah,
And you don't have a say in who comes in. You just have to go and coach. You don't know what you're using. And
yeah,
when it came to the table, you didn't know what to do with these players, and you were asked very quickly. You have to be smart about who you join next. My the one that pays me the most to this day is Paul Ince. If anyone remembers, Paul Ince was doing an incredible job at MK does.
yeah. I remember that.
Incredible job.
Yeah,
But that was League One. And Blackburn brought him to the
okay.
Premier League
Yeah,
and it was an utter disaster. And that even tells you someone with a name like his in the English game with so much respect and pedigree doesn't matter. If you can't coach these players at the highest level, then it's just not for you.
that's
And
the thing.
okay,
Yeah, that's. I think. Yeah, Thomas Frank is gonna have to find a way to deal with them because obviously you're not. Also, you're talking about players with a level of entitlement.
mhm,
At Brentford is a lot easier to coach those players because they're players who are kind of some of them playing above their means. You know, he's come up with them and they understand I'm playing at Brentford. So there isn't a level of ego or level that, oh, when it comes to one, the money they earn, the status, the kind of names they're playing. Now he's come at Tottenham, is it's a lot harder to coach because you talk about a lot of these players are international players. A lot of these players are used to operating at a high level or competing at they may fall off, but competing at a high level. So trying to coach those guys to play in a way that suits you is going to be difficult. So you need to make sure that you're effective in terms of how you're getting them to do that, and you get your buy-in. Because some of these players can easily switch off and know that I'm still going to be here. You're not going to be here because they're at Tottenham. So which is where Thomas Frank needs to quickly find a way to identify who he's going to work with, who he needs to isolate,
yeah,
and get the buy-in from the board that these guys need to be gone. So, and this is the type of players that I need to bring in. But he needs buy-in from the board and he needs buy-in from the players who are going to believe in what he is trying to do.
yes,
Because if he's going to try and coach them and they're not used to that in a certain manner, they're not used to it, you can easily lose players. And players who are operating at a top five, top six, top seven club have a level of ego which can be difficult to manage, unlike managing players at Brentford, which is a lot easier to manage.
exactly. All right. Last one. Your
Yeah,
boys. Your boys. I even forgot to ask actually, we'll do this very quickly.
go.
Um, because we were speaking about Mainoo earlier, his brother. Um, you said that we spoke about it earlier.
Yeah.
Your thoughts come
I,
up.
I didn't think it was a big deal, to be honest.
Mm,
Like, okay, he wore a shirt saying "Free Kobbie Mainoo." You can wear it. Who cares? Do you understand? Because actions like that are not going to impact the manager's decision. If the manager wants to play Kobbie Mainoo, he's going to play him. If he doesn't want to play him, he's going to play him. Seeing that isn't going to impact anything the manager does in regards to the players. And as I was saying to you, there's been family members who have said a lot worse in the media about their family members when things aren't going their way or they're not being played or they feel they're being mistreated by the club or a manager. There's people who have come out and said a lot worse. I mean, wearing a t-shirt saying "Free Kobbie Mainoo" for me is the least of anyone's problems. I don't even know why it was a story or why people were discussing it on a personal. I think it was a non-issue. It was a non-issue. Obviously, yeah, his brother's doing it to make a statement, publicity, and and if he feels his brother's being mistreated, okay, he's wearing a shirt. But at least I think that's the least of anyone's problem. I mean, he's Walsh. He hasn't come out and really said any disparaging comments about the manager, about the club, or anyone. He's just wore a t-shirt. I didn't think it was a big. I saw it. I was like, oh, okay. I kind of glossed over it because I didn't see it as a big deal as some people did
yeah.
personally.
That's fair. I mean, to be fair, I don't have an issue with Kobbie Mainoo, and I still think he'll be great at this club. I'm hoping he
Yeah,
remains. I think he'll be a great at this club. I don't even take issue with the brother because to be
Mm.
honest, to be quite frank with you guys, you guys, on Love Island, I think it was a Wally. And that's just fit on YouTube. I think there's a Wally there as well. So when I saw that, I was like, this is Wally being a Wally, and I couldn't care less about what he
There you
does to
go.
me. He's the least of my concerns. So whether Kobe knew about it or not doesn't matter. Bro, this is your brother, and for me, I think if you want to if you want to make it a serious issue,
Yeah.
I don't think this even helps your brother in
Yeah, it doesn't. I
it's
think, yeah.
like it's pointless because what's going to happen is you're not going to deal with it. It's your brother's going to have to deal with it. If it was someone who was a lot more strict, imagine Sats Ferguson days, you're getting pulled into the dressing room. What's your brother doing wearing that shirt? It's a long day.
Yeah.
It's a
I
long.
mean, a lot of players would have known not to do that.
Oh no, no,
I
exactly.
expect
No,
so.
exactly. But
Yeah.
I'm just using him as the extreme because we know
Yeah.
how tough he was. I don't know how tough Amarim is. I've not heard a story of him being, shouting or whatever. I've heard a story of him punching the TV last season when Man United were down at halftime in the
Yeah, I
game.
heard of that.
That's probably his first explosion of emotions, saying what the hell's going on here. Um, that I'm aware of anyway. But I had to go to that extreme just because I think whether it's an extreme or not, you're not the one having the conversation with the manager if once
Mm.
they find out like what's your brother doing. You know what I mean? It's pointless. But anyway, Wally's being Wally's man. So as long as Kobe's I just hope he stays and he's gonna be a part of this club. But if he wants to go away on loan, I think let him go on loan. It's a World Cup season. If he needs to go and play,
I agree. I think they should let him. I know. I say they should let him because they're not playing him anyway.
yeah, so then yeah, go on.
So let him go. He's not part of your plans. We've seen it. Is I mean, how many games did this season? He's barely kicked a ball. So if the player wants to go on loan, I don't feel the manager or the club should be blocking that
No, exactly.
because you one obviously the guy gets to play football and you can benefit in the long run because if he goes to a decent club, puts in the performance and is able to pick up form again, then it benefits you in the long run if you're able to bring him back and integrate him into the team.
Precisely. Precisely. Okay, back to Arsenal. Now we talk about Arsenal earlier, so well, Gyökeres in particular anyway, and I spoke about that number of through balls.
Mm.
But you guys didn't need through balls to be Wolves, you just need your own goals. Um, but just look, you're still top of the table.
Mm.
No matter what anyone says about the game, you're still top of the table. You're still performing to the well enough level to be at the top of the table. But obviously, you got rivals who are losing a little bit in the city.
Yeah.
I won't mention Villa yet because I know they are only 3 points, but
They're gonna fall off. I don't even bother. I
well,
don't
yeah,
even know how
we don't
people are
know.
talking about
We
them
don't.
being
We
terrible.
they haven't given us evidence of a team that can maintain the title challenge. So
Yeah.
I can't talk about them like that yet. If they somehow
I
do
mean,
it,
let's put it. I'll quickly say Villa struggled. Let's not. They've been struggling in all their 9 games. They could have lost that game to West Ham. Let's not forget Bowen had a goal disallowed for offside.
mm,
West Ham had them on the ropes at times and just didn't take their chances. So we were lucky to walk away with a victory. That for me doesn't isn't the sign of a team that's going to challenge for a title because it's going to fall off at some point if you're not consistently playing well, even in your victories, especially when your team like Villa. If your team like Arsenal and City, you know at some point there's going to be you can pick it up from that level. I think Villa are playing at the highest level at the moment. I can't see them picking it up where it is there's a sustained improvement in their performances. I mean, they've got United next. I could see them drawing or losing that game personally,
well,
depending on what United team turns up.
well,
I know you may
let's not talk
disagree,
about that and
but
jinx anything. Let's just see what happens on Sunday. Um, but no, you guys obviously 2-1 against Wolves.
yeah.
I don't necessarily have an issue with Arsenal, but it's Wolves I have an issue with. But
Go
come from
on,
the angle that you want to. I'm going to just say Wolves very quickly. I want
go
to
on.
say it one more
I'm
time.
interested.
I want to say this one more time.
Yeah.
I think the club needs to understand that no matter who they bring as manager, this team just couldn't get a cut it. I think they were so unprepared
Mm.
for who they lost in the summer. And for me, that's quite baffling because Cunha was a done deal by April.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
and Sarabia and the others, you knew they weren't extending their contracts. So where's the planning?
Strand
Where's the
Larson,
it's
they look very stupid rejecting 65 million from Newcastle for him because he's done absolutely nothing. And I don't know, whoever made that decision to reject that deal should be sacked.
exactly, exactly, because that's money you could have used to invest in the whole squad.
Exactly.
I just I don't know where they're coming from. But I said this about Derby many years ago, and I'll never forget the conversation with Darren that I had where I went to Darren's house after the last day of the season. It was 2008. Man United won the league. Um, but I went to his house, and my first conversation wasn't, "Oh, bro, we've won the league." And my first conversation was, if Derby can go down with other points. I never ever want to see them in the Premier League again. And God was listening because we have not seen them back since. So if Wolves equal or even worse, get less than 11 points, God, listen to me again. They can never come back. They can never come back. That history is yours. Stay there. Don't come back. We don't want to see you again. um, but yeah, I mean, you can come from the Arsenal side, the Wolves side, depending on what you want to talk about.
From Wolves, it's just terrible. I have very little to say about Wolves. They are just a very, very bad team.
Mm,
Very, very bad team. Going forward is very disjointed defensively. They're just bad. I mean, they don't know. I don't know what the structure is at Wolves, what they're trying to do. They're kind of halfway between trying to be solid and trying to attack, but it's basically nothing at the moment. So I can see them going down with less points than what Derby
mm,
had if things continue at this rate, because no one seems to respect Wolves and everyone seems to go there thinking we can get 3 points against Wolves.
yeah,
From an Arsenal perspective, it's worrying because it goes back to what I've always said in the beginning. I'm not impressed with our forwards, Saka included,
right.
because they don't score many goals and they don't look like scoring many goals. That's what, like, look at Foden. Foden scored 2 goals in 2 games. I don't see any other player doing that. Eze scored a hat trick against Tottenham and has fallen off since then.
Yeah.
Foden scored 2 goals and he's continuing that form. Scored another two, then scored another goal. He scored like five well, discounting the match that they played against Brentford in the League Cup. He scored like five in his last three in the league, probably more than that if I go back a few games. But you see, you have players there who can score multiple goals in a game. I never look at any Arsenal player and think you can score more than one goal in a game. I never look at Saka and think you can score 2 goals in a game. He rarely scores 2 goals in a game. I never look at Martinelli and think you can score 2 goals in a game. I never look at Trossard and think you can score 2 goals. At the moment, what it is, it's 1 goal, but it's spread out between players. And once again, Wolves is another one. And I think Wolves is another where it shows where football is right now and the bad state football is in. Because what it shows is that everyone is coached, overcoached, where even when you're pegged back or something, it's just the same old. I was watching Arsenal trying to break down Wolves, doing the same thing over and over again.
Mm,
And usually, what you usually had the teams in the past is they'll try and break down their team, and it's like, okay, you had intelligent players, thinkers who will say, you know what, I need to do something different, different approach. You can give it to certain players who can kind of create things off the cuff, who can kind of like be spontaneous in how they're going to break down a team. And I looked at Arsenal, I was like, it was the same old. It was like, we're trying to break down Wolves the same way. It's going out wide, they're trying to throw in crosses, same passes, same level, same type of movement. There wasn't any variation, or there wasn't any player trying to take the initiative and do something different. And for me, that was quite worrying with Arsenal. And it was the same against Villa. It was the same against Villa. I don't see anything different. And I think that will cost us because City starts off the season very badly and are 2 points behind us, picking up form. Arsenal should be very worried about it. This is one of the best seasons Arsenal started in the league. And yet we're looking shaky now with City 2 points behind us. And I think it's very worrying that Arsenal don't look free flowing in games. Where City, you look at them, they can score 3, 4 goals in a game. And you never have a problem with thinking they can create that many chances for that many goals. With Arsenal, you look and you think, there's games I don't even think they can score more than one or two. Villa, when that game was going, even if Arsenal scored 2 goals, I couldn't see them scoring more than 2 goals. Wolves, they should have been able to put 5 or 6 against Wolves as other teams have done in the past. And they struggled, but it had to come from 2 own goals
yeah.
from them. I mean, that's the issue with Arsenal, is that it's the same old. Players are still doing the same routine. Players are not stepping up, and no one is taking initiative to be the main man. As much as Saka's a good player, he doesn't score that many goals. He's not the difference maker in teams, and that's one thing we're lacking at the moment. And is the thing that could be the difference between Arsenal not winning anything this season. Whereas you look at City, Foden can be a difference maker, can come up with a goal that's needed, as he did against Leeds. Haaland is a difference maker. When the chips are down, could come up with a goal when needed. And I think Arsenal need to find a way to be able to overcome that.
Okay. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Of course, another podcast fun. if you ask me for which number podcast it is, I can't lie, I always forget. So you're gonna have to forgive me for that one. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, on to the next one. Peace.
Peace.